In the streets of Edinburgh, Bradley Welsh became an undeniable presence, trying to balance between being a hero and a villain. Once a renowned boxer, he transformed into a prominent figure in the community, charming those around him with his charisma and impact while adeptly maneuvering through the treacherous landscape of crime. However, as rivalries intensified and aspirations clashed, Welsh's ascent to prominence took a sinister turn, ultimately resulting in a terrible end that left the city in shock. Let's explore the life of the most dangerous Britain's youngest criminal. Bradley Welsh was not merely a man. He embodied a force of nature. Born and raised in Edinburgh, he was deeply rooted in the city's tough streets. From an early age, Welsh demonstrated his natural fighting spirit inside and outside the boxing ring. He began his career as a professional boxer, quickly establishing himself as a formidable competitor, known for his powerful punches and unyielding determination. Although he gained respect through his boxing prowess, his ambitions extended far beyond the confines of the ring. Welsh's transition from a football hooligan to a prominent community figure made him an intriguing personality. He leveraged his street smarts and connections from his hooligan days to carve out a dual reputation, that of a local hero and a feared figure in the criminal underbelly. His association with the Hibs casuals was well known, and even after striving to turn his life around, his past continued to loom large over him. His experiences on the terraces likely helped him forge connections within Edinburgh's crime scene, where the network of casuals often intersected with organized crime, particularly in drug trafficking and street violence. Thus, his past was not a mere footnote. It was integral to his identity, influencing both his criminal ties and his ability to navigate between the worlds of legitimacy and street life. As Welsh's boxing career drew close, he did not fade into obscurity as many fighters do. Instead, he redirected his focus toward the darker sides of Edinburgh's underworld. He gained local celebrity status and was renowned for his charisma, pride in his city, and growing influence in its shadowy corners. To many, he was a man of the people, deeply involved in community initiatives to steer youth away from crime. He operated a boxing gym, engaged with local kids, and passionately advocated for positive change. Yet beneath this community-focused facade, Bradley Welsh maintained significant connections to the city's criminal elite. His history as a street-savvy boxer had placed him in close quarters with some of Scotland's most notorious gangsters. The public viewed him as a defender of Edinburgh, dedicated to uplifting his community. However, Welsh commanded respect for his business acumen within criminal circles, running clubs and expanding his influence in Edinburgh's underworld. His name held weight, and it was clear he was not a man to be crossed lightly. This duality, being both a beloved community figure and a respected player in the criminal realm, allowed Welsh to thrive in two vastly different worlds. He skillfully played both sides, attending charity events and mingling with locals one moment and engaging in undercover dealings the next. His charm enabled him to connect with everyone, from troubled youths to hardened criminals. Rumors concerned his ability to mediate disputes between rival gangs, maintaining a tenuous peace within Edinburgh's criminal landscape. Welsh was not merely involved. He wielded considerable power, which made him a unique figure, simultaneously adored and feared. Was Bradley Welsh a benevolent figure aiming to improve his city, or was he a kingpin operating behind a respectable facade? Perhaps he was both. This duality contributed to his status as one of the most fascinating and dangerous individuals Edinburgh had ever known. With a taste for the wealth associated with crime, Welsh enjoyed the spoils of his lifestyle, including luxury cars, upscale properties, and the thrill of power. However, The temptations of fast cash and respect within the criminal hierarchy came with significant risks. Welsh's connections to major players in organized crime, drug lords and gang leaders, afforded him a lifestyle that few could imagine. He lived in expensive homes, adorned himself in designer clothing, and cultivated a reputation that opened many doors. Yet, with this wealth came peril. The world of organized crime was rife with unpredictability. Alliances were fragile, and enemies lurked around every corner. Rivalries could escalate into deadly confrontations over minor grievances, and Welsh was acutely aware that his hard-earned wealth and respect could vanish with a single misstep. Despite the dangers, the thrill of the criminal lifestyle was irresistible. Bradley Welsh thrived on the adrenaline that came with his position. By 2019, while his reputation appeared solid on the surface, underlying tensions within the city's underworld began to surface. Rivalries intensified, and Welsh found himself at the heart of the escalating conflict. The trouble started with money. As Welsh's influence grew, so did the stakes. The underworld functioned like a business. He was deeply involved in everything from nightlife to illicit dealings. Over time, he had made enemies, and these adversaries were not content merely to see him fail. They sought to dismantle his empire. In the criminal world, ambition can be a dangerous game. Bradley Welsh's rise to power made him a target for those who envied his influence and coveted the wealth he controlled. Despite his formidable presence, he was not invincible. In the months leading up to Welsh's murder, tensions escalated between rival gangs. While Welsh was often seen as a potential peacemaker due to his extensive connections, not everyone trusted his intentions. Some believed he leveraged his position for personal gain while keeping others in line. Rumors began to circulate about his alliances, and in the underbelly of crime, such whispers could be just as lethal as bullets. The issue of loyalty became a ticking time bomb, with distrust simmering just below the surface. Amidst this growing unrest, one name stood out: Sha Orman. Known for his violent reputation and insatiable thirst for power, Orman was not just another gangster. He was willing to do whatever it took to ascend the criminal ladder. Within the shadows of Edinburgh's criminal scene, he found himself at the center of a deal that would irrevocably change the landscape. Welsh's influence became perceived as a roadblock for others in the city, marking him as a threat that needed to be neutralized. Additionally, rumors circulated that Welsh was sitting on a significant amount of cash, money that others desperately wanted. Whether this wealth originated from previous dealings or was part of a deeper rivalry, it was clear that financial motives were at the core of the rising tensions. Those close to Welsh began to see him less as a community hero and more as an obstacle. This shift in perception was pivotal. The conflict was no longer merely about respect, but had morphed into a fight for survival. In the Welsh world, anyone who got in the way became a problem that needed to be eliminated. The hit on Welsh was meticulously planned. Acting on orders from higher-ups, Sha Orman began tracking him, sensing the growing vulnerability in Welsh's demeanor. Despite Welsh's instinct that something was amiss, it was too late to act on those suspicions. His enemies circled like vultures, waiting for the right moment to strike. This assassination wasn't just about eliminating a man. It was about sending a message that Bradley Welsh had been playing both sides for too long, and now someone wanted him out of the game for good. The night of the murder was not a spontaneous act of violence. It was the culmination of months filled with tensions, negotiations, and shadows whispering in the dark. The build-up to Welsh's demise involved feuds, financial disputes, and betrayal, elements that defined his ascent to power but ultimately led to his downfall. Bradley Welsh had lived a fast life, forged powerful alliances, and made equally powerful enemies. In the underworld, such a lifestyle often comes at a high cost. As Welsh navigated this treacherous landscape, it became clear he was living on borrowed time. Every deal, rivalry, and lingering grudge closed in on him. His rise had been dramatic, but his impending fall promised to be even more catastrophic. On April 17, 2019, a seemingly calm evening in Edinburgh would become anything but ordinary for Bradley Welsh. As he went home to Chester Street, he remained unaware of the lurking danger. Sha Orman, the hired hitman, had been meticulously observing him, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. Welsh had no clue that his life was on the brink of a brutal conclusion. Orman was not an amateur in this. He had tracked Welsh for days, methodically plotting every detail of the impending hit. He understood the route Welsh took home, the timing of his movements, and the precise moments when Welsh would be most vulnerable. This was not merely a job for Orman. It was a carefully orchestrated assassination that demanded cold precision. Orman was not there simply to eliminate Welsh. He aimed to send a powerful message. As Welsh approached his front door, with his guard down, Orman was poised to strike. Hidden in the shadows across the street, he was calm and focused, undeterred by the weight of his mission. Every detail had been carefully calculated, and now it was time for action. As Welsh stood mere feet from his front door, oblivious to the imminent danger, Orman emerged from his hiding place. Armed with a shotgun, the weapon of choice for this task, Orman moved with purpose, his mind laser-focused on the assignment at hand. Welsh, still unaware, was about to become the target of a meticulously planned execution. In one swift motion, Orman raised the shotgun, aimed directly at Welsh, and pulled the trigger. The sound of the blast shattered the quiet neighborhood night. It was a single shot, but it was enough. Bradley Welsh, once a feared and respected figure, was hit at close range, and his body crumpled to the ground, the life draining from him in an instant. Blood spilled onto the pavement, transforming the peaceful street into a gruesome crime scene. In mere seconds, it was all over, and Sha Orman, the shooter, didn't linger. He moved with the same precision that had brought him to this moment. Vanishing into the darkness, he left behind only the horror of what had just occurred. There was no chaos, no struggle, just a cold, calculated assassination that had gone exactly as planned. For Bradley Welsh, it was a brutal and sudden end to a life lived on the edge. In those final moments, all the power and influence he had built meant nothing. The man who once commanded respect and fear across Edinburgh was gone, taken down in the blink of an eye by a professional killer. However, the ripples of Welsh's murder would be felt far and wide. As news of the shooting spread, shockwaves tore through the streets of Edinburgh. People who had known Welsh, those who admired him, feared him, and even those who had fought alongside him, were left stunned. The hit was a message, a reminder that in the world Welsh inhabited, no one was untouchable. For the police, this execution was terrifyingly efficient. They recognized it wasn't the work of an amateur. This was a professional hit carried out with such precision that it left little room for error. The hunt for the man responsible began, but Orman had already melted away into the shadows, leaving little trace behind. The streets of Edinburgh were now left to piece together the fragments of a life that had ended so violently. The night of the hit wasn't just the conclusion of Welsh's life. It was the combination of months of feuds, betrayal, and power plays. Welsh had lived a life filled with power, danger, and respect. But in those final moments, all that mattered was the cold, clinical precision of the hitman's shotgun. As the city buzzed with the news of Bradley Welsh's murder, Sha Orman was already on the run. As a man who knew how to disappear, Orman had planned his escape well. He confidently moved through Edinburgh, fully aware that the police were dealing with more than just a common criminal. They were up against someone who had mastered the art of evasion. Orman wasn't simply fleeing, he was slipping between the cracks of Edinburgh's underworld, utilizing safe houses, switching vehicles, and relying on a network that stretched beyond the city's borders. He was connected to a world where loyalty meant survival, and favors were traded. His understanding of the streets provided him an edge, allowing him to stay one step ahead of the authorities. Yet, no matter how difficult he was to catch, Orman wasn't infallible. The allure of his lifestyle made it impossible for him to vanish completely. The police followed a trail, with each piece of evidence leading them deeper into a complex maze. They recognized he had connections and began mapping out the intricate web of contacts he relied upon. Orman's escape was not merely about clever hiding, it was about knowing whom to trust and when to move. However, the cops were closing in. Orman's capture was far from the quiet end many expected. It unfolded dramatically, resembling a scene from a crime thriller. Behind the wheel of an Audi Q3, Orman was spotted by the police. Instead of surrendering, he floored it. The chase ignited with Orman hitting speeds that blurred the city streets. The Audi roared through roads and lanes, weaving in and out of traffic as he attempted to outrun the police. For 21 minutes, it was a game of cat and mouse, with the Audi Q3 pushing its limits as he employed every trick he knew to shake off the officers on his tail. The police pursuit was relentless, their sirens piercing the night as they remained hot on his trail. Orman knew the streets well, but there was no escape route to save him this time. Eventually, the chase culminated with the Audi cornered, the high-speed thrill ride coming to a halt as the reality of capture sank in. His arrest marked the dramatic climax for the man who had become the talk of Edinburgh's underworld. The trial of Sha Orman for the murder of Bradley Welsh was more than just another case. It was the final chapter in a story that had gripped Edinburgh and sent shockwaves through the city's criminal landscape. Welsh, once a powerful figure with deep connections in the streets, was gone, and now it was time for his killer to face justice. The atmosphere in the courtroom was charged with anxiety as the specifics of the murder came to light. Orman remained composed in the dock, betraying no signs of emotion. The prosecution introduced compelling evidence against him, featuring CCTV footage that showed him at the crime scene, forensic ties linking him to the offense, and witness testimonies identifying him. Central to the case was the alleged murder of Welsh, in which Orman was implicated in the shooting. His previous efforts to evade capture were brought to the forefront as he confronted the judicial system. The prosecution sought to demonstrate his intent and premeditated actions in the crime. Having previously escaped from law enforcement, Orman now found himself in a precarious situation with overwhelming evidence against him, leaving little doubt about his role in the murder. The courtroom proceedings highlighted the substantial weight of the evidence presented. The trial dragged on for weeks, with every detail scrutinized. The defense attempted to depict Orman as a man caught up in something larger than himself, but the facts were undeniable. This was a hit, carefully planned and ruthlessly executed. Orman had stalked Welsh, tracked his every move, and ended his life with cold precision. There was no escaping the truth. When the verdict was announced, it transcended mere justice for Bradley Welsh, signifying an era's end. The jury found Sha Orman guilty of murder, and the judge did not hold back. Orman was sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum of 28 years before he would even be considered for release. As the sentence was read, the courtroom remained silent. There was no victory here, just the stark reality of the life Bradley Welsh had chosen to lead. He was a man who played the game at the highest stakes, walking the line between respect and fear. With his absence, the streets of Edinburgh felt different, as if a chapter had closed on an era that was both thrilling and dangerous. Welsh had lived larger than life. He had been a kingpin who wielded significant influence over his city, navigating the underworld with the same finesse he used to charm the community. However, every game must end, and this one concluded in a way that left a void no one could fill. He defied the rules, lived by his code, and ultimately paid the ultimate price. His murder marked the end of an era. Sha Orman was locked away, yet no sense of balance was restored. Edinburgh had lost a character, a legend who lived fast and fell hard. As the city moved on, a quiet void settled in. For those who knew him, both in the criminal world and beyond, his death was a stark reminder of how swiftly the game can change. The man who had once been a force to reckon with was gone, leaving a silence that spoke louder than any words ever could. For more raw and real crime stories, hit the like button and subscribe. Until the next episode, stay alert and stay safe. Welsh's funeral was attended by many who had known him, friends, family, and even those who had once been rivals. They came together not just to pay respects, but to acknowledge the legacy he left behind. In life, Welsh had straddled both worlds. In death, he became a symbol of the violence and chaos that plagued Edinburgh's underbelly. With his passing, the city found itself at a crossroads. Would the community rally together, continuing Welsh's legacy of mentorship and support, or would they succumb to the darker elements his death had only amplified? For many, Bradley Welsh was a reminder of the duality of life, hero or villain, savior or sinner. The lines blurred in the shadowy corners of the city, and his story became one of many that defined Edinburgh's troubled past. Bradley Welsh's life vividly illustrates the thin boundary separating heroism from criminality, demonstrating how an individual's history can unexpectedly influence their future. His transformation from a celebrated boxing champion to a notorious figure in Edinburgh's criminal landscape reveals the intricate webs of loyalty, ambition, and betrayal that frequently characterize the lives of those caught in the grip of crime. In the end, Welsh's tragic fate highlights the dangerous repercussions of straddling both dark and light paths, bequeathing a legacy that questions our understanding of morality.